co-host Jason Sunkel tonight, and we are jumping on here after a destruction of the Cleveland Cavaliers by the Boston Celtics. Not surprising in any
Mike, I
way,
have
which we're
something
going
to
to talk about.
say. I have something.
What?
I have
What?
something to say, Mike.
Okay.
I'm oddly optimistic, and I don't know why. Because I feel like the Cavs were in that game, but they just couldn't make any shots. Like they couldn't make anything. Like how many layups did we miss, Mike,
A
in
lot.
the first half? In the first half, how many open threes did we miss, Mike?
A
There were
lot.
a lot. Um, I'm weirdly optimistic. Like I know the score they lost by 25, but I don't know. Like it's strange. I don't. I mean, Derek White isn't gonna keep replicating this, right? Like, come on now. Like,
Come on, Derek White. He was a borderline all-star this year.
oh, come on now. Tatum was an all-star and he was terrible tonight. He was
Yeah,
terrible.
can I just say the ship has sailed on Jason Tatum as a top 5 player in the NBA. Anybody who's still waiting for him to develop into that is going to be waiting a long, long, long time. You're going to be old and gray before Jason Tatum becomes a top 5 NBA player. I mean, here's the thing with the Cavs. We said it after they beat Orlando on Sunday. I just don't know how they score. And granted, you're right. They miss a lot of layups, they missed a lot of open threes. But as I look down this roster, unless Darius Garland gets it together, and when I say gets it together, I mean he shoots above 50% from the floor and tries to look at the basket and score, there's nowhere to turn. I mean, I don't know who's going to score 20 points in a game besides Donovan Mitchell. I just don't see who has that capability. Levert's not getting enough minutes. Mobley can't finish around the rim until garbage time. Strus has been, other than his barrage in the third quarter against Orlando, which was huge in helping the Cavs to advance. So kudos to him. But for the most part, Max Strus has been invisible. Where do they score? I just don't see how we
Well,
score
here's
enough.
the problem. Okoro was the reason they were in the game still at halftime, right? Like playing his defense and hitting three threes. I mean, the fact that Charles Barkley is my guy, Isaac Okoro, is keeping him in the game. Like
Is
that's a
Okoro coming
problem.
back next year? Is he coming back next year now? What are the Cavs? What kind of contract do the Cavs offer Isaac Okoro?
I don't know. Not probably enough, honestly. Someone will give him more money than we're gonna be able to give
What
him,
would
right?
you offer him? I don't know. What would you offer him?
I don't
Like,
know.
what's
I
a
don't.
fair contract for Isaac Okoro?
Is Isaac Okoro? Well, let's see. He's not as valuable as theoretical Jared Allen, right? We're paying him 20 mil a year. I don't know, like seven,
Wait,
eight.
hey, that's our new guy right there, theoretical Jared Allen. We talked about we need a new theoretical guy. Well, guess who's theoretical at this point? Jared
There's no
Allen.
way. There's no way he's coming back this series, right? If
What is
they're
going on?
well,
You have a rib contusion. You can't play for 4 games. Come
listen.
on, man.
There's got to be more to it, and they're just not saying it because they're keeping their cards to the vest or something. He's got to have like a cracked rib or something, right? He's got to have a cracked rib. Like they're not coming out and saying it because if they say it, then they know the Celtics know he's not playing. Whereas every if right, that's got to be the reason. Are you
I
allowed to do
guess
that on an injury report? Are you allowed to kind of say he's got this injury, but he actually has a different injury? I don't know if that is that being.
you're probably not allowed to do it, but it seems like look, I just don't understand how the guy's playing. Anyway, you're right. Isaac Okoro is probably not as valuable as Jared Allen, but Jared Allen also signed his contract what
3
3 years
years ago.
ago. He probably has 1 year left on his deal, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah,
Isaac Okoro, I'm guessing Isaac Okoro gets somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 years,
30 mil,
55 million,
55.
55.
Holy
Yes,
Jesus!
yes, yes.
No, you can't pay him that much.
I don't think you can, but I think somebody will because look, defensively, he's one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And if you're another team, or even if you're the Cavs, you still have to think that he's a young guy. I mean, Isaac Okoro came out after what I believe his sophomore season, if I'm not mistaken. So he's maybe 23 years old at this point. So Can he still develop as an offensive player? Probably. I mean, is he ever going to be a frontline offensive player? I doubt it, but he's going to continue to get
He is
better. And
he is
defensively,
23 years old. Good job, Mike. You're impressive.
so defensively, I mean, he's one of the better wing defenders in the league. And those guys are valuable. And if you could believe that this guy can get in the gym and keep working and get himself to the point where he can knock down open catch and shoot threes, that type of player easily commands $20 million a year. Now, Okoro is probably a little short of that on the offensive side, but for a 23-year-old dude, I think there'd be a lot of teams lining up to pay Isaac Okoro. I think he makes somewhere in the neighborhood of between 55 and 60 million over 3 years. Or maybe if he
Oh,
signs a 4-year, it's a little bit less. Maybe he signs 4 for 65, something like that. I could see him getting that kind of contract, which again is crazy. But that's I think the going rate.
okay. I don't think the Cavs are going to pay that. It depends.
This
I think it
roster,
depends on what. That depends what. It depends what happens in the offseason, right? Depends if
well,
we
this
make any
roster,
moves in the.
yeah, this roster is can't look the same as it does right now. I just to your optimism, I would just counter with I don't know how the Cavs score with the Celtics. Now the Cavs gave up. I said I didn't think they'd be giving up 125 points a game to Boston. And tonight, what was the final? 120 to 95. Was that the final?
Yeah, I mean, and they scored 40 in the first quarter now, and then we held them to 19 in the second quarter. So, like, I don't know. I
I
think
just don't
one.
think we can score. I just don't think we can score. Look, I think there could be a game where tonight Boston would they make 18 threes, I think. 18 of 46 from three. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. I mean, that's about average for the number of threes that they take. They hit almost 40% tonight. There's going to be a game where they're not going to shoot the ball well, and Boston is not a team that is smart enough to pivot away from that. If it's not going well, they're just going to continue to fire them up. So there's going to be one game in this series where Boston shoots the ball really poorly, and that'll enable the Cavs to be able to, I think, sneak out a game. But I just don't see consistently, if you're talking about winning 2 games or really putting pressure on Boston, I just don't know where the scoring comes from Cleveland. I mean, Mitchell had 33, and
All that was pretty much all in the first three quarters, right? Did he score in the fourth, Mike? Did he score in the fourth? I don't think
that
he
I
did.
don't that I don't remember. I doubt it. But okay, so if you concede that Mitchell's going to get 30, even concede Mitchell's going to get 35, like where do the other points come from? I just don't see who on this team. I mean, there's just nobody else that's going to put up big numbers. Garland is the only guy who has the potential to score 20 plus in a game. I just don't see anybody else who's going to get to that number. And
Well,
without
what about the legend of Dean Wade if he comes back?
Dean Wade hasn't played in what 6 weeks at least.
Yeah, I know.
So the idea that he's going
He
to come
was
back
running
and
on the
be
court. He was running on the court today, Mike. Did you see the video that
good.
was going around the
No, I
social
did not
media?
see it, but whatever. I mean, to me, that's what it comes down to. I mean, I think the Cavs can defend Boston adequately, but I just don't think they can score. When you look at what the Cavs would have to do in order to be able to beat Boston, like I said, the formula to me is Boston shoots poorly from three, and the Cavs get a 30 plus point game from Mitchell, and then you get one other guy that gets 20 plus, and everybody else kind of does whatever around 8 to 12. And that's the formula. But I don't know. I don't see how the Cavs can get there. So give me what do you think? What do you think offensively that they can do to be able to? I think they're going to have to score. They're not going to win games scoring 95. I don't
No,
think.
they do have to score more. I honestly think what they were talking about on the broadcast in the third quarter, and I know that it ended up spiraling out of control there, but that was all because you had the, you know, the the rotations. I'm not going to question JB at all here, Mike, but you had there was a rotation, 2 rotation things happened, and once again we were down 12 already or 14, but I feel like Garland finally hit 2 shots, and then JB pulled him off the floor. Like he finally made 2 shots. Change your rotation, leave him on the floor. Maybe give Donovan a blow now. And then we went down 20. I'll be honest, Mike. I turned it off with 8 minutes left. I was like, this isn't happening. I'm just gonna get mad and yell, and I don't want to yell and get mad. So I turned it off with like 8 minutes left. Call me a fair weather fan if you want, but I just getting frustrated. And Merrill was terrible tonight. So all of the Twitter people who have been complaining, including us, who said, why isn't Merrill getting any minutes? Like, he was god awful tonight. And I mean, we couldn't even set screens to get him open, and that was all because of the way the Boston plays defense. They're switching everything. I mean, they're switching anything and everything, which goes to the point was something that they said, and there was a stretch in the second quarter, in the third quarter, that our defense switched, and the announcers even said, "Oh, the Cavs are switching every screen now," and it was working. And you know what happened? We did that for a little bit, and then we stopped doing it. And we started going under the screens again, and magically they started making shots. Hey, JB, here's an adjustment for you. Keep switching the screens. Your strategy of going under the screens didn't work tonight. You got to switch the screens, and even if that puts, I mean, and the other thing they were doing is they were totally hunting Garland on every possession. In the first half specifically, I noticed it more in the first half than the second. They're hunting him because he's the weakest of the defenders, right? He's the weak cog in the defensive machine. And I thought LeVert came out with good energy in the first half, and then he was nothing burger in the second half. But I don't know if that's a rotational thing. I don't know if that's what that is. I mean, LeVert, you either get good Caris LeVert or bad Caris LeVert. And I think we had kind of both monsters in the same game today. But I really don't know that he did anything bad in the second half. He just was kind of there. He was just kind of there. Yeah.
He has to play because he at least provides the potential of some dynamic play, a guy who can score and also play make. He's not my favorite player, as you and I have talked about, but he is somebody that can actually do stuff on the floor. Like Sam Merrill's going to make threes, but he's not going to create anything. He's not dynamic. Niang, theoretical George.
Hey,
Niang
he didn't get
threes.
any minutes tonight.
Right. He got no minutes until garbage time. So that goes to, so let me address 2 of the things that you said. One is we've complained all season about JB's rotations and how he mixes and matches lineups and this and that. But when you start really looking at the choices that he has of guys that he's playing. So right now he's playing Marcus Morris Sr., who basically is off the scrap heap. He's playing Tristan Thompson, who was on an NBA studio show last season. Those are 2 of his top 7 or 8 guys that he has a choice of playing.
Well, yeah, Mike, but I know what you're going to say, but the problem is he's playing them together, Mike.
But there's nobody. Nobody unless you sub in one dude at a time. Unless you sub, look, okay,
Mike.
So
Mike, he put the lineup he had that I'm specifically thinking about at the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, was Darius Garland, Sam Merrill, Isaac Okoro, Tristan Thompson, and Marcus Morris. They got a solid 3 minutes together. Those 5 guys. So you had
but here's my point. Right? Here's my point. I don't disagree with you. Like, that's a horrendous lineup. However, the counterpoint to that is if you're not going to roll out some combination of lineups like that, because if you take out, first of all, you already have Okoro in there. So you already have one guy offensively who is a struggle. And you could make a pretty good argument that Mobley is a struggle offensively. So if you take off your better basketball players, then I just don't know who's he supposed to put in? There's nobody there. There's nobody there that can do anything. And so in his defense, the only option he really has is to go Tibbs and just play these dudes 44 minutes a game, which I don't know that he's going to do that. That might be the right move because I just don't
What
think you
about
can
Damian
depend in any
Jones?
way,
Didn't
shape,
we
or
sign
form.
that guy? Didn't we sign that guy to do something? Like he played
You
for
would
the
think.
Warriors. He played for
Yeah,
the
you would
Warriors.
think
He
he
won a
would. You would
championship.
think
Like
he.
he could play a
Yeah.
few minutes. Like what think he's you got Ty Jerome who sprained his ankle in the preseason. That guy he melts listen, taking his
He's got.
money to the bank.
Yeah, that's right. Keep
Like
cashing them checks. Keep cashing them checks, Ty
listen,
Jerome.
listen,
Without
I'm
without Jared Allen, man, they just there's no like. I look. I don't like JB any more than anybody else does, and we've criticized him a ton on the podcast. But I have a hard time criticizing who he has on the floor at any given time in the playoffs right now. Without Jared Allen, there's really, in my mind, there's nowhere to turn. Like I look at every one of those guys that got minutes, and to me, look, I've never been a fan of Marcus Morris or Markieff Morris. So the fact that Marcus is playing, no thank you. Niang, I never want to see him play another minute of meaningful basketball in the playoffs. Tristan is fine. You can give him minutes if you have him surrounded by other offensive players. Levert on this team has to play, and I'm okay with the Sam Merrill heat check. He should get a look every game and get a few minutes to see if he can knock some stuff down. But there just isn't a whole lot of places to turn.
Yeah. All right. I've said enough of this
Right.
series.
Let me address.
For Tim.
Can I come back to you with the Garland point about Boston hunting him?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that goes with. I think that goes with what we talked about a little bit earlier when you're saying, "Hey, we got to get Garland going." Right? Garland makes a couple shots and JB takes them out. Well, it's tough. Like my thought is, hey, let's do everything in game 2 in the first quarter to get Garland going. Let's run some stuff for him. Let's really concentrate on trying to get him open shots and see if we can't get him going offensively. And at the same time, you're 100% right that Boston was doing everything they could to get his man involved in the screen role so they could get him into the matchup that they wanted to be able to attack. And that again goes back to the makeup of this roster because I just don't know long term, can Mitchell and Garland, can those guys play together on a championship team with that size in the backcourt? And I think the answer is no. And you're talking about when we first had this discussion, Garland was playing at a much, much higher level offensively than he is right now. I mean, certainly this version of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell have no chance of getting to an NBA finals or winning an NBA championship. Even the best version of these two guys, I think defensively, it's always going to be a struggle against a bigger team. You look at how big the Celtics are across the board, and it's one of the things that makes them so good, right? Is that Drew Holiday and Derek White are both dudes that there's a reason why Boston's switching everything because they can, because their guys are huge.
Yeah. Well, listen, here's what I'm going to say, and we can put a bow on the Cavs. If they can somehow come out and win on Thursday, which that's a big if, but if they could, then they will have accomplished my goal for them, right? I said they need to win one of these first 2 in Boston. They can do that, then they give themselves a fighting chance. If they get demolished again, then I think the writing's on the wall. And,
I don't think they can win the series. I'd love to see them win game 2 or at least come home and win game 3. And I think you're right. I think if they win one game and at least give themselves an opportunity to make it look competitive, I think you probably look at that as a win. Although, if you go back to their decision to make the Donovan Mitchell trade, if you're topping out at winning one game in the conference semifinals as a win for basically trading away your entire drafts for 5 seasons, it seems like a pretty hefty price to pay. And again, Donovan Mitchell, you can't have any complaints about what he did against Orlando, what he did in game 1 tonight. I have no complaints, but they haven't put the right roster around
Hey,
him in
Mike, I have
terms
an
of
idea.
making
I have
these
an
guys.
idea, by the way.
What's that?
No one's hired him yet. JJ Redick next year? Cavs? JJ Redick?
Okay, so here's what I'll say about JJ Redick. I've always been a proponent of I'd rather see a guy who is new get an opportunity to coach. However, I would much rather see a guy who at least has some coaching experience, who's been on an NBA bench, get the job rather than a guy who has
Listen,
never coached 1 second in the NBA. I
you
know
know,
JJ Redick has played in the NBA.
I'm really just saying JJ Redick because he's doing the podcast with LeBron.
No, look, I get it. I'm not suggesting that you're really forecasting that the Cavs are going to hire JJ Redick, and who knows, JJ Redick may very well get hired by some team. But personally, look, I like, and I've said this before, that I don't want to see teams, my team, hire a guy who is a retread, who
Mike
what you're getting
Budenholzer.
is right, like Budenholzer. Look, and I guess you could say Budenholzer is an above average coach, I think, in the NBA. He has some flaws, but everywhere he's gone, his teams have improved, and there are things that his teams do well. What we questioned about him all the time was, does he make adjustments? Can he change, quote, his system when circumstances dictate? But
Well,
he does
that
when
sounds very similar to the current coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
right, except for the fact that I think Budenholzer is better at what he does than Bickerstaff is at what he
I don't
does.
know.
But
Bickerstaff's really good at bitching at the refs, Mike.
he
That's
is. I don't want to hire a Monty Williams type and pay him the most money of any coach in NBA history. Like that to me, those hires I'm not interested in. Then I'd much rather have the Cavs hire an assistant who's getting their first NBA head coaching job and see if that guy can become a great coach. However, sometimes you do that and you get the Adrian Griffin situation. So there's no guarantees. Just like with players, when you hire a coach, there's no guarantees.
yeah.
There are very, very few coaches in the NBA, I think, who everybody agrees are great coaches who make a difference in whether or not a team wins a lot of games. And those guys are few and far between. Coaching in the NBA is an unbelievably difficult job. I don't claim to have any ability to even come close to what all these guys can do. But I think, look, the Cavs are more than likely going to have a new head coach next season, you would have to guess. But I think if you bring in a new head coach and you bring back this same roster, I find it hard to believe that anybody could solve the problems on this roster. And it'll be interesting to see if the Cavs have to make moves from a position of strength, meaning that Donovan Mitchell signs the extension and says he's going to be here. And then the Cavs figure out, okay, we know Mitchell's going to be here. Now let's try to build the right roster around him. Or do they have to pivot? Mitchell says, I'm not going to sign the extension. And then the Cavs have to seriously look at dealing him from a position of weakness. And who knows what they do with I think any one of those four guys I could honestly see being traded. To me, I think Mobley's probably the least likely guy to not be on this roster next year. But I would not be stunned if, given the right situation and the right return, that I would have told you a year ago that there's no possible way, 100%, that they're not trading Mobley. As I sit here today, I don't think it's likely. I think he would be the least likely member of that quartet to be shipped elsewhere. But I would be open to the possibility that the Cavs could trade Evan Mobley, given what the return might be.
Yep. We'll just have to see, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, let's transition. I think we want to start with the fun series, right? We want to start with
Sure.
the fun. That is the Timberwolves demolishing. Listen, the Cavs lost tonight pretty badly, but we didn't expect the Cavs to compete. Let's be honest. Like we didn't. The Nuggets were straight up embarrassed yesterday. No Gobert, defensive player of the year, by the way. Which, by the way, did you see Gilbert Arenas' quotes?
Yeah.
What a clown. What a clown.
That was the baby's still going to be there. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Oh, what a clown.
Ridiculous.
Anyways, Gobert misses the game. So you think, oh, man, the Nuggets are going to even the series. Oh, no. They did the exact opposite. They got that game was a demolition derby. And listen, it's looking like, Mike. I mean, the series is not over yet. Okay, it's not over yet, but it's not looking good. Jamal Murray, clownish behavior. He should have been suspended. I think he should have been suspended. If it was a regular season game, he would have totally gotten suspended. He got fined $100,000. You saw that, right? He got fined hundred thousand
Yes.
dollars and no suspension. I think he should have been suspended, but the NBA wasn't going to do that, even though they suspended Draymond for getting goaded into punching LeBron in the nether regions. They they didn't suspend Jamal Murray. Do you think he should have been suspended, Mike?
I understand why they didn't, but throwing foreign objects out onto the floor.
Multiple objects. He threw the towel that didn't get there, and then was frustrated the towel didn't get there, so he chucked the other thing. And all
Seems
it needed
like
was all he needed was another player to step on it and hurt himself. Like, and they were.
that
It's
certainly
not like
seems
they
like a suspendable offense. Let's put it that way.
100%. It should have been a suspension.
I'm
You're
not
given
surprised that I'm not surprised they didn't suspend him, but yes, I agree.
like you look at. I know they rescinded Anthony Edwards' technical of staring down the guy in the first game. You gave that guy a technical because he stared someone down after dunking, but
And
you did.
Michael Malone didn't get a technical for storming onto the court, and
Did you see the quote? Michael Malone did not say anything in his that I felt was crossed the line. He didn't swear. He didn't use any profile language. He just got in my face. Are you kidding me? I
yeah,
I've seen
look,
I've
I
seen
don't
guys
care.
get technical fouls for like doing like legitimately nothing.
Right,
And
I agree. I
like what
agree. The
was that
fact that
one in
he
the
even
cat
did it,
the one in the Cavs game the other day? The double technical or the double foul or a double delay a game that was a nothing was a nothing burger, and they gave a stuff to that. It just and then listen, I just think at this point, Mike, I think it's not looking very good for Denver. Jamal Murray looks not great. Um, there was no update on what's his name, right? Uh, Reggie Jackson. Was there an update today on
no,
him?
I have not heard anything. I know it was a
But
calf
you can't.
strain, but I haven't heard
You
anything.
can't. That doesn't sound. We've seen how that works with Giannis and other players.
Yeah, not good.
Not good. And yeah, I mean, Jokic last night was the most flustered and out of sync I've seen him look.
Agreed.
Um, in a long, long time. Does that mean that the Nuggets are out of this series completely? I'm going to say no. I'm not willing, but it's you've got to really. I think there's no way that the Nuggets don't win this. If they win this, it's going to have to go 7 games. There's no way they're going to win 4 straight now. Um, and all the momentum going back to Minnesota. That place on Friday is going to be very, very loud, um, and and
I
crazy.
think that's safe to say. Yeah, I think that's safe to say. Look, I agree with you on the Jokic point that, and I think that extends to the entire Nuggets team. But the possession that really got to me that I was like, holy cow, was
Can I guess? Can I guess? Can I guess?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When they trapped Jamal Murray in that top, like the two players trapped him, and then they had to on that same possession they had 24-second violation. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, yes, yes. When
Yeah,
Jokic caught the ball, and there was like he had like 4 seconds maybe when he caught the ball. And typically, right? I mean,
he'll
what
throw
do
up
we
that
think about
crap, that
Nikola
crazy.
Jokic?
He'll
But
throw
what
up
do we
that.
think about Jokic, right? He's the best player at this point of diagnosing and understanding and knowing where everybody is and knowing situation and just being able to make the right basketball play. That's who Nikola Jokic is. And when he got the ball there and just started randomly dribbling, and then all of a sudden the shot clock's going off and he's throwing the ball up over his head as he walks back down on defense, that's when I knew. I was like, man, they are in a game and a half, and I don't think that was even, I think that was the first half. If I'm not mistaken, that possession was in the first half. In a game and a half, Minnesota has, as you said, completely flustered and gotten inside of Denver's head to the point where Jokic is basically, again, I know the whole team contributes to that, but he would have obviously had an opportunity to just at least get a shot off, which is normally what you would expect him to do. And in that case, it was like he was completely unaware of what's going on. And I'll go back to what I said about Denver when I watched their game 1 against Phoenix. And every time Phoenix put the ball on the floor and tried to go to the basket, there was seemingly limbs, torsos, bodies, length everywhere. It just seems like a guy puts the ball on the floor and just gets swallowed up by Denver's defense. Their rotations in that game yesterday, Denver was moving the ball at times, and
You mean Minnesota's defense is what you're talking about, right?
Minnesota's
Okay.
Minnesota's defense. I mean, Denver was moving the ball on some possessions and doing the ping, 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 and Minnesota was just boom, guys there, boom, guys there, boom, guys there, boom, guys there. Guy drives, all of a sudden, help defense is there, another kick out, boom, guys there, and it just felt like Denver had no answers. And not only did they have no answers, but then as we saw with the Murray play and throwing stuff on the floor, as we saw just with the frustration from Michael Malone, they just allowed that play from Minnesota, that defense, that ruggedness, that length to not only impede them from an offensive standpoint, but just again affected how they approach the game mentally. And look, Denver is the defending champions. I expect them to come out and give a much better account of themselves in game 3. But what Minnesota has done to this point, I don't think anybody could have foreseen what they're doing. And the number one part of it is what they're doing on the defensive end of the floor and just being seemingly everywhere and making everything that Denver wants to do more difficult. So you have that piece of it. And then, of course, you've got a couple other pieces that I think are critically important. First and foremost being Anthony Edwards is just taking it to a completely different level. Now, he wasn't quite as explosive in this game, but he didn't need to be because his team's defense was carrying the day. But we said it on Sunday night, and I'll say it again here. What this guy is doing at 22 years old, both from a fundamental standpoint, a mental standpoint, a leadership standpoint, he is just off the charts in terms of who he is and where he is right now. I mean, you're honestly looking at it is obviously far more likely that Minnesota is going to advance and win this series. And if they do, they have to come out of this series probably as the favorite to win an NBA title.
I don't know. The way that
And
Oklahoma City is dismantling Dallas right now.
Oklahoma City is looking, we'll talk about them here in a second, but all the things that we're talking about with Minnesota in terms of being locked in and being together, you can say that and double down when it comes to Oklahoma City. So we'll get to them in a second. But look, my point is that if somehow Anthony Edwards at age 22 is the best player on an NBA championship team, it's pretty rarefied air that he's getting. He's already in a spot where he's doing things that when you start comparing him to the all-time greats, things that he's doing right now are things that only the very, very best players in the history of the league have done.
It's very reminiscent of 2007 LeBron, right? Like
It is for sure. Although but again, I don't think 2007 LeBron had a legitimate chance to win the NBA championship.
Well,
I think
because
this
primarily because he didn't have any. I mean,
right.
Anthony Edwards' team's way better than
right.
than what we were.
If you put 22, if you put 22-year-old LeBron James on this Minnesota team, then yeah, you're probably talking about it in the same way. But the fact is that that's not what LeBron had, and Edwards does have it, and he may take advantage of that and end up leading his team to a title at age 22, which would be absolutely incredible. I mean, it would be.
Would he be the youngest? Would he be the best? Would he be the youngest best player in an NBA championship team? He has to be, right?
I would have to think so. I mean, I don't think anybody else has won Finals MVP at age 22. Which clearly, if Minnesota is going to win the title, he's going to be the Finals MVP. If they're,
I don't know if Karl-Anthony Towns comes out. If Karl-Anthony Towns comes out and plays like he did in the first half yesterday, that guy was on fire.
Look,
He was on fire,
here's
baby.
the thing. Here's the thing with Towns. Like, you watch Towns, and you and I have said it multiple times. Like, Towns, he seriously is a clown. Like, he's
He,
arms and legs flailing. He'll just bowl guys over on offense. He'll do some of the stupidest things you've ever seen on defense, just reaching in and hacking on people. But I know he claimed to be the greatest shooting big man in the history of the NBA. I would tend to argue with that claim, but he is an extremely talented offensive player. And thus far in these first 2 games, he has done just enough non-dumb things to warrant him being out on the floor. And what he's done to this point, if he can play the way he's playing right now, which is avoid the dumb plays on offense and defense, and be able to score when Ant is resting or when they need a little run here or there, I think he's in the perfect role. When you have Karl Anthony Towns as your team leader, good luck with that. Your team's
yeah.
going nowhere, which is basically where Minnesota has been in the time that he's been in Minnesota. But now that you have Edwards kind of taking over that team leadership role, Karl Anthony Towns is slotting in where he belongs. And if he can master that role, he's a pretty good guy to have as your second option, just because, again, of all the matchup problems he creates at his size and being able to play both on the interior and out on the perimeter and shoot threes. He's a difficult matchup. The best version of Karl Anthony Towns is a pretty good second offensive option on a really good
Yep.
NBA team, which we're
Yep.
seeing today.
Yep. All right.
Did you see? I have one other thing. I don't know if you saw this from Hubie Talks Hoops. I'm trying to look for it. I'm trying to look for it right now.
Yeah.
Just talking about
great,
Denver.
great account, guys. Everyone follow Hubie Talks Hoops, please.
Yeah, it's a great.
It's like Super 70s Sports.
Yeah, especially if you try to read it in, especially if you try to read
voice.
it in Hubie's voice. It's great.
Okay, Mike, go ahead. Hubie's voice. I want you to read this in Hubie's voice.
Well, this one really wasn't in. This one really wasn't in. It wasn't designed to be in Hubie's voice, but I'll see if I can find one here as I'm looking through it. I got to get to it. So it's basically talking about Denver's opponents in last year's playoff run, because they ended up playing the Lakers, who were a play-in team in the conference finals, and then Miami in a play-in team. So here's where we are. This was Hubie Talks Hoops going into last night's game 2. Okay. Why I think the Nuggets are overrated heading into tonight. I don't think we properly accounted for how totally fluky the 2023 playoffs really were. Last year, Denver beat teams that had won an average of 43.5 regular season games, and Denver did not face an opponent who had won more than 45 regular season games. Looking back at the 15 82-game seasons dating back to 2005, the teams who won the championship faced teams with an average number of regular season wins of 52.3. No team other than the Nuggets didn't have to play a single team who won fewer than 54 games. The lowest average regular season wins per opponent was the 2013 Miami Heat at 47.5. To put it another way, if the Nuggets repeat this year, every team they face will have won more games than every single opponent they beat on the way to last year's championship. Particularly striking are how few wins the Nuggets conference finals and finals foes had relative to previous years. So it's kind of crazy when you really think about it. And look, I'm not trying to discount Denver. Denver is a really good team. They have run into a team that has been built, I don't know if specifically by Tim Connelly to try to beat the Nuggets, but it's put together perfectly from a size standpoint to be able to give Denver trouble. And as long as Jamal Murray is this version of Jamal Murray, Minnesota's going to win this series. Now, if Murray can get back to what we expect him to be and what he's been in past playoffs, Denver can still come back and win this series, but it is looking pretty grim right now for the Nuggets.
Yeah. There's a really good one that the Hubie Talk Sports from tonight. It's about Josh Giddey. I'll just leave it at that. Mike, you could read it. You could scroll up and read it. I'm not going to read it on the air. Anyways, I listen. I don't know. It's that team's there's the Wolves are winning the series. I'm sticking with it, Mike. I'm saying Wolves in 6, like I did. Or I might even the Nuggets are not going to go swept here. I'm going to go Wolves in 6, Mike. I'm going to go Wolves in 6 still. I'm going to stick with my plan. Wolves in 6. What do you think now?
Fair. Look, I mean,
you went Nuggets in
I
7,
mean,
so
yeah. I mean, I'm picking. I guess I theoretically could stay with Nuggets in 7, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, Minnesota has been playing too well. Now, look, Jokic is the best player in the world. I'm guessing that over these 3 days, they're going to try to figure stuff out. My question just becomes, what is Jamal Murray's health? And if he can't be at his best for whatever reason, I don't think they can do it. If he somehow comes back and is normal playoff Jamal Murray, then sure, there's a pathway for them to do it, but it's not going to be easy. And to be honest with you, I'll be very surprised if they're able to come back and win this series. I just think Minnesota's locked in.
okay. All right, let's go to the other game from yesterday, and then we can. This game's over too, but we'll just go to the other game from yesterday. The Knicks Pacers. I'm going to say that was a heck of a game until the last minute and a half, and there's only one group of people to blame for that. The referees. Man, were there some bad calls. You got reviews out the wazoo. Then you got a kick that they call a kick ball on something that was clearly not kicked. And you can't review that? Are you kidding me, NBA? You can't review a kicked ball call? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is so stupid. They should be able to review it and have imminent possession. Why is that not a reviewable play? I guarantee you it'll be reviewable next year. Guarantee you. There's no way they're not going to change that rule. I mean, I don't understand why wouldn't that be a reviewable play? What's the con for making that a reviewable play? It doesn't make sense to me. There's that play, then that terrible offensive foul call. Listen, I want someone to send the league off as the Boston Celtics screens all tonight, because they were more moving than the one screen that was called in the whole game. Like, that was a terrible call at the end. It was a really good acting job, but it's a terrible call. Then the stupidity of the Pacers to foul before the inbounds. Dumb. Like, that's a dumb play. So, like, it was a great game for 46 minutes. The last 2 minutes, not good, primarily because of the referees. I thought the Pacers did a lot of really good things. Obi Toppin doing a between the legs dunk in the middle of a playoff game and being successful. That's pretty crazy. I really thought that Indiana was running away with it there, but then New York just kind of chipped away at it, and then the end happened. And I think we were deprived of an even better ending if they wouldn't have called that foul there, or if they wouldn't have called the kickball situation. I think we could have possibly had an even better ending to the game. It was still a really good game, but the referee clown show that happened at the end of the game, my God, that was bad.
Serious question. Would you want to do away with instant replay if you could? If you could go back in a time machine and just get rid of it, would you get rid of it?
I think, Mike, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I almost think they should get rid of Coach's Challenge, and it should be automatically reviewed. Going back to the triggering things in the last 2 minutes. Everything is reviewable. I'd almost prefer that, to be honest with you. Maybe get rid of the coaches things, or maybe what they really need to do is a coach gets a challenge. I don't know. I'm of two minds. I really like the calls to be made correctly, especially now in this day and age. You and I clearly saw that was not a kick ball. Like that's a terrible call. I don't even know how they call that a kickball, but that's a terrible call that should be reviewed. But at the same time, that slows the game down. I don't know. Like part of me thinks it should be like the NFL where a team gets 2 challenges, and if they're successful, they get a third challenge. I think that would make it better. Um, or maybe have them have one challenge in the first, because I know a lot of coaches save their challenges in the first half. They don't want to use them. Maybe every team gets one challenge in the first half, one challenge in the second half, and if they're successful with that one challenge in the first half, they get one additional one. I don't know. I don't know where I think you're going to say you want to get rid of challenge, just but then we're going back to trusting the officials to do the right thing, and clearly the last minute and a half is an indictment on refereeing. I don't know.
All right. So one of the points you addressed, which I think is valid, is sitting at home. People are watching on their 100-inch TV in high definition. So compared to when you were a kid or when I was a kid and we were watching on a 22-inch TV where it was all blurry and you couldn't really see anything. Now, when a call is made that's wrong, it's pretty hard to hide it. But at the same time, I just feel like one, it slows the game down tremendously. Number two, it puts a huge focus on those calls because now everybody in the entire arena, everybody at home watching on TV, every fan is all dialed in on what's this call going to be? Is it going to be overturned? Is it going to be upheld? All the focus becomes on the official's call. Whereas if there's no replay and sure, that ball isn't kicked, it hits Neesmith's hand. Okay, we show the replay once, we know the call's wrong, boom, the ball gets inbounded and we move on. You think about that offensive foul on Turner on the illegal screen. Sure, it didn't get overturned. Did Miles Turner move? Sure. But there's nobody who watches NBA games, not a player, not a coach, not a fan, who thought that that was a good call of a moving screen. To your point, you could watch tonight's games and you could see 50 examples of guys who move more on their screens than Miles Turner did on that particular screen. And so I just think that, yeah, I agree with you that I'd like to see the officials get the calls right. But I just think the expense of it, too often I've seen where they go to the replay and it's blatantly obvious that the call is wrong and they still don't overturn it. And if they're not going to overturn calls that are blatantly wrong, then I don't really know what we're doing. And it slows the pace of the
yeah.
game down so much. And it puts all the focus, like all the focus in the last 2 minutes of that game last night. It was not on the players. There was no focus on the players. Everything that was talked about in a reaction to that game last night
Was the
was about
refereeing.
the officiating. It wasn't about Brunson getting 40 again. Not that there wasn't talk about that, because clearly what he's doing is unbelievable. But the focus should be on the play on the floor and not what's going on in a replay booth.
Well, not only that, not only that, Mike, but the one play they fouled, or that they overturned, was that foul. And they said it was marginal contact. The follow through literally made contact with that guy's body.
Yeah, look, there's so many times where they go to, and I don't claim to be an NBA official. I don't claim to have read the NBA rule book, but I've watched and played and coached a lot of basketball. And so there are so many times that they go to the replay booth and I look at it and I'm like, it's obvious that the call is this. And then they make the announcement and it's the exact opposite. And so in my mind, the replay oftentimes isn't even getting the calls right. And if the object is to get the calls right and this system isn't getting them right, then I feel like we're dragging down the last 2 minutes, 3 minutes of a game with these stupid reviews that oftentimes don't turn out the way that they should anyway. And it completely kills the momentum. It puts all the focus on the officials' calls instead of let's just accept the fact that that's a moving screen and we move on and play next. Let's just accept the fact that The referee thought he kicked the ball, but he really hit it with his hand. And we inbound the ball and we play on. And look, people are going to debate that, but people are going to debate the replays anyway. So I'd rather have the game flow in the last 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Let's just get rid of it altogether. I know they're never going to do that because the technology is too good. And as you said, everybody can see what's happening. But I don't know. To me, the delays and the fact that they can't get it right anyway is enough reason that I would get rid of it. If I was an NBA GM, front office, coach on the rules committee, I'd be advocating to get rid of it because I just think to me, it just destroys the last 2 minutes of games.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so what do you think like? Is this going to be a long series, Mike?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
said I think I picked Knicks in 7. I think Indiana. Look, I think Indiana can win the series. I don't know if they will, but I think that you look
there's a
at last
world,
night.
yeah.
You look at last night. Brunson goes for 40 again. Look, maybe we. I mean, my next comment would be I don't know if he can keep doing that, but he's done it now for 4 games in a row, and there's only 5 guys in the history of the league who have ever done that. So maybe he's just going to keep doing it. But if you're Indiana, Halliburton scores 6 points. The Knicks are playing basically 6 dudes, and 5 of them are playing 46 to 48 minutes.
Yeah.
And how sustainable is that? You saw Mitchell Robinson's out for 6 to
6 to
8
8
weeks now.
weeks,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I mean he's done. He's done. So at some point, do those guys just keep going or do they break down? I have no idea. But if you're Indiana, you got to think. And what I liked about Indiana too last night was I felt like they got the Knicks to play at their pace. Like they were pushing the ball, they were getting up and down the floor. And look, if I'm playing a team that has 5 dudes and I'm a deeper team and I have the kind of offense and have played the way that Indiana's played all season, pushing the pace, I feel like if I can continue to do that and we can play games in the 120s, that I'm going to have a pretty decent chance of beating the Knicks. And look, a lot of things went wrong for them too in terms of the Pacers in the last 2 minutes. I think Indiana can win this series. I don't know if they will, but I see it as being a long series. There's 2 keys to me. I think Halliburton obviously has to be better offensively. He's not getting back to, at least not this season. He's not getting back to the guy we saw in the first 2 months of this NBA season when he was playing at an all NBA level. That guy, for whatever reason, whether it's injury, whether it's mental, whether it's the grind of the season, he's just not getting back to that level. But he has to be better. He has to score more than 6 points. And then I think the second thing is, can Indiana figure out a way to slow Brunson down? And what I think is interesting is they threw a couple different bodies at him. They had Nembhard trying to guard him. They had Nesmith trying to guard him. I think at some point, and Brunson, I think the most amazing thing about him is just the fact that at his size, which again, I know he's listed probably as like 6'1", but the reality is he's probably like 5'11". The fact that he just continues to shoot jumpers right over top of anybody they're putting on him. I wonder if at some point in the series, Indiana doesn't try Siakam on him and just try to rejigger the other matchups and just throw an even bigger guy to try to take away those jump shots. And maybe Brunson blows right by him and it doesn't work, but I kind of feel like Siakam's a good enough defensive player. He's agile enough that he could maybe at least try to buy. Let's put it this way: Philly didn't find anything, that worked, and
Yeah.
Indiana didn't find anything that worked in the first game. So maybe you just try something different to throw a look at him. But I think Indiana's going to continue to push the pace, and if they can do that, I think they have a real chance to beat the Knicks.
Okay. I mean, those are fair assessments, Mike. Those are fair assessments. I don't buy it, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. I still think the Knicks are the way better team, and I think they're going to do it, even though they're only playing 6 guys in
It's ridiculous.
true Tibbs fashion.
Yeah,
But
it'll be interesting to see if they do advance at some point. It'll be interesting to see if that ever catches up with them. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Briefly talk about this game. I'll be honest, I didn't watch too much. I fell asleep before we recorded, so I didn't watch much of the game. But what I will say is the destruction that I watched in the while we were recording here. I mean, does Dallas even stand a chance? Although this is their 5th straight loss in game ones, Mike, and they've won what two of those 4 series prior to this. So I guess they can lose game ones and win the series still? Question mark. I don't know if I feel good. Listen, here's what I'm gonna say. I think we're setting up for a great Western Conference Finals. If it's Minnesota versus Oklahoma City, it's going to be a great Western Conference Finals. I'm not going to believe that the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be very good. I just think Boston's just so good in the East. Like, I just don't see anyone beating them. But I would really. How perfect would it be, Mike? I'm writing my own fan fiction here. How perfect would it be for Boston to play Minnesota in the NBA Finals, and Minnesota stops Boston from winning again? It'll be just like like the Cavs knocking them out constantly, and now they've got their there, and then we're gonna have to hear Simmons whine about how the Celtics ran against an all-time great Minnesota Timberwolves team. This could be fantastic. But and honestly, like I don't like Boston, but it wouldn't be like the end of the world to me to have it be Boston, Minnesota, because I think that would be a good series. I kind of want a good series in the finals, Mike. Because honestly, I don't think, I think Oklahoma City, Boston would be a fun series too. But I think of my teams, obviously I would like the Cavs to be in the finals, but I think that's not very likely. But I think of the teams in the East that, Indiana and New York run a very similar, sometimes offense on the half court that the Cavs run, as we called it, the clogged toilet offense. Whereas Boston just moves the balls and really, really does things the right way, in my opinion. And like the ball's constantly jumping, they're moving the ball, they're sharing the ball. Any of their guys can do something with it. And then if you look at the West, like honestly, the only team in the West I don't want to be in the NBA Finals is and just because it's probably the Mavericks out of the 4. I mean, I like Luka and I like Kyrie, but the rest of their team is not fun to watch play basketball. They're not a fun team to watch play basketball. I don't think any. I mean, I don't know where you stand on that, but I think my ideal case is Minnesota, Boston. I don't know. I think that would make for the best NBA Finals.
I think any of those 4 teams that come out of the West would be fun to watch. I mean, I think you can.
Well, the Kyrie having to play in Boston would be fun. That would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, you
guess.
can parse it. You can parse it out. There's good score. There's good storylines, no matter no matter how you go there. And in the East, I think if it would be anybody besides Boston, they would be a huge, 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 huge underdog to any of those 4 teams that would come out of the Western Conference. Again, I don't see Boston losing to the Cavs. I don't see them losing to whoever wins the New York Indiana series. That's with all the flaws that we kind of know the Celtics have. So I expect Boston to get there. And then let's just talk a little bit about this Oklahoma City Dallas game tonight. And you don't want to react to game 1, which is I think the point that you were making, that Dallas has lost, what did you say, 5 game 1s in a row. And so is game 1 telling of what's going to happen in the rest of the series? Not always necessarily, but sometimes it means more than others.
Oh, we got an important tweet, Mike.
Okay, Magic.
No, Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
Tribe, stay together no matter what.
Good sentiment from Kyrie. I think when I look at this game tonight, I think that a couple keys to this game stand out for me. Number 1, just like we talked about with Minnesota being locked in as a team, I think Oklahoma City is completely locked in as a team. You can tell those guys are together. You can tell it when they're playing on the floor in terms of their chemistry on both ends of the court. You can tell it when they're coming off the court, back onto the court after timeouts. You just see that they're connected. They like playing with each other. There's something to be said for that. That's an important part, I think, of being a winning team. I think Oklahoma City definitely has that. I think Dallas, to some degree, has that. We saw that in the last series against the Clippers. Compared to that Clippers team, I think Dallas was locked in. So I don't want to write off the Mavericks, but I think Oklahoma City has something in terms of their team chemistry, which obviously doesn't win you a championship, doesn't even win you a series or a game, but it's something that if you have it, it's definitely something that works in your favor. Then I think the second thing with Oklahoma City is that they are, and this goes to Mark Dagnall and kind of his ability to adjust on the fly. Pretty much all season long, Josh Giddey has been a starter playing starters minutes. Tonight in game one of the conference semifinals, he played 17 minutes. And I think there was a lot of talk heading into the playoffs of how much can Giddey play? How much will he play? He had been making threes, I think, since the All-Star break. He'd been shooting close to 40% on threes. But in certain matchups, like tonight with Dallas, Giddey plays 17 minutes. And I think that ability to adjust and give other guys minutes and make that adjustment is going to be a huge part of why Oklahoma City can have success. So I think if they continue to just look at game to game what's working, and I think they will, to me that gives them a big advantage. And then on the Dallas side, Luka was 6 for 19 tonight. I don't think they can win with an average to below average Luka Doncic's performance. As good as Kyrie is, they just don't have enough other guys. Like, again, they're similar to the Cavs, except for Dallas has two guys and the Cavs have one. But if you take away Luka's ability to A, score, and B, his playmaking is always going to be what it is. I mean, some of his passes are just ridiculous. Like, he's just like LeBron in the sense of he'll drive in and all of a sudden he's whipping like a hook pass in the lane with three dudes on him that hits a guy in the corner just perfectly right in the shooting pocket. I mean, he's amazing as a playmaker, but he has to be able to score efficiently in order for Dallas to win. And if he's going to shoot below 50%, then Dallas is not going to win this series. Like I said, I'm not willing to completely write it off because I think that Luka and Kyrie are both two extremely talented players, and the guys that they have around them can and have shown in that last series that they're capable of doing what's necessary in order to win. I do think, though, that when you talk about the comparison between playing the Clippers versus playing Oklahoma City, you're talking about two completely different animals. You have a team in Oklahoma City that's completely locked in and young and hungry and ready to go. And then you have this Clippers team that was just, I don't want to say going through the motions, but an aging team, a team that never really felt like it fit together. And of course, we had playoff James Harden, which we never really talked about the success of trading for James Harden. And I guess if you're the Clippers, you can say, hey, it got us two playoff wins, not two playoff series wins, but two game wins. So kudos to you, Clippers, for bringing on James Harden and getting that done. But anyway, I think that when I look at this in totality, and I guess I'm guilty of this, I certainly, over the course of the season, I kept looking at Oklahoma City and saying, all right, playing really well. Shea's having a great year. Maybe he's going to finish second in the MVP voting. Hard to believe. I just found myself kind of discounting this team as a potential NBA champion, even though they're the number one seed. And even going into this series, I think there were a lot of people that thought Dallas was going to win, myself included. And maybe we're just criminally underrating how good this Oklahoma City team
Yeah.
is because they're so young. I mean, I just think they have lots of positional versatility. They have depth. Shea's as good as anybody in the league at getting a shot on a possession when you need a basket. Like, he can pretty much one-on-one generate a good shot anytime a good shot is needed. And those guys, as we've talked about many times, are pretty rare. And so I think I'm going to proclaim myself guilty of kind of criminally underrating Oklahoma City, but that doesn't mean that Dallas can't come back because of how good Luka and Kyrie are. But
Yeah.
I'm certainly starting to come around in terms of maybe I've been underrating Oklahoma City all year, if that makes sense.
Let's be honest. How much have we talked about Oklahoma City during the season, Mike?
Not much at all.
Like Chet's been the one thing we've talked about. Chet and SGA. That's about it. So yeah. I listen, and they're the number. They were the number 1 seed. So
Right.
there goes that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, it is one game. I'm not. They lost a similar amount that the Cavs lost by. So we'll just have to see how they respond in 2 days. They play on Thursday. The Cavs open tonight. They were 11.5-point underdogs. What do you think they are going into game 2, Mike, for game 2? So tonight they were 11.5-point underdogs. I just saw this on the Twitter while I was scrolling to see if there's any.
Let's say 13.
13.5. You've been playing
Yeah.
Guess the Lines too much with Bill Simmons. You're pretty good at that. That was
That's
a good
it.
job.
There you go. That's it. All right. I have one last thing before we wrap up. And it kind of got to, you were talking about it a little bit when you started saying, hey, we could have a great Western Conference Finals between Minnesota and Oklahoma City. And if you start looking at those two teams getting to the Western Conference Finals and one of them getting to the NBA Finals, in Oklahoma City, you have a team that is young across the board. Plus, they probably have the greatest war chest of draft assets that's ever been accumulated. If that team makes even the Western Conference Finals or the finals or wins the NBA championship, I mean, talk about a team being set up to be great for a long time.
Yeah.
You're talking about Oklahoma City. And then you take Minnesota. Now they have a different set of circumstances because their team is going to get very expensive this offseason. But if you are looking at Anthony Edwards at age 22 and what he's doing, clearly at this point right now today, I'm not sure that if you were going to take the future of any NBA player at this moment, I think it's probably Ant and Victor Wembanyama are your two guys that, from a young player standpoint, now maybe only Luka's, I guess,
Paulo might be in that conversation. Might be in that conversation.
No. He's not. Paulo is nowhere near the level of these two guys. He might get to be. I don't think Paulo's on the level of Edwards or Wemby. But anyway, I guess my point here is that when I look at the Western Conference and how loaded it is and how good these teams are, and if the two teams that come out of this conference to make the Western Finals are Oklahoma City and Minnesota, I mean, if you're some of these other teams, like if you're Denver and you lose to Minnesota,
I know what you're
like,
saying, Mike. I know what you're saying. LeBron,
sudden,
leave the Western
no.
Conference and come back to the East to the Cavaliers.
Okay, no,
that's what you're going to say.
It's not what I'm saying at all. It wasn't even.
LeBron, come on.
I thought we were gonna go the whole podcast without mentioning LeBron. No, my point is that if you're Denver, 2 weeks ago, you're thinking we're gonna go back to back with this team, and we have the best player in the world. And if you lose this series, all of a sudden you're going into your offseason going, oh my God, like, where are these two teams? They're not going anywhere. And Edwards is only going to get better. Shea's only going to get better. Holmgren's only going to get better. Jalen Williams is only going to get better. The Spurs are coming. It's crazy to me that those two teams, Minnesota and Oklahoma City, could end up being the two teams. And maybe it's likely that those are going to be the two teams in the Western Conference Finals. Whereas, like I said, 2 weeks ago, we were all ready to crown the Nuggets. And look, the Nuggets could come back. It's not completely out of the question. And they might win another NBA title. But, man, the level of talent in the league right now is off the charts. And it's been a fun playoff, despite the fact that I guess all these games, with the exception of the Pacers-Knicks game 1, were complete and utter blowouts. But there's just so many good basketball players to watch, and it'll be interesting to see how this conference semi plays itself out.
I really think you teed that up for me, Mike. You teed that up for me, by the way.
I didn't. Honest to God, I did not tee that up for you. I had no.
As soon as I heard you say that, I turned to. I've got my LeBron jersey right here, Mike. I know you're not looking at my screen. I've got my LeBron jersey right here.
In no way, shape, or form was my mind taking me to LeBron coming back to the Cavs.
Well,
All right, let me
I
ask-
went.
Can I ask you this question? I don't really want to talk about this, but I have to ask you. So, if LeBron is going to come back to the Cavs,
Yeah.
who do you want all four of our best players to still be on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're just going to plug LeBron into those four guys, or do you want to see us do something? Now, I know we don't have to dissect and figure out, okay, if you trade this guy, what are you getting back? But would you want LeBron to be plugged into this current
I would want
quartet?
I would want Jared Allen gone. And we figure it out from there. I think he's the one of the four that I would get rid of. Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, LeBron, and then probably try to get another you probably could start Strus. I think that five right there. I think Garland, Mitchell, Strus, LeBron, Mobley. And you ship
think that's
Jared.
a championship team?
I think it's an Eastern Conference championship team. I don't know that they win the finals, depending on who they play. I think they're in the Eastern Conference. They're definitely in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I'm not signing up for that one, man.
You're not signing up for an Eastern Conference Finals?
That team's not making the Eastern Conference Finals, man. Come on.
You wouldn't think that team doesn't make the Eastern Conference Finals this year, Mike?
No.
Okay, let's keep in mind that a regular season we wouldn't be the 4 seed with that lineup. We wouldn't be the 4 seed with that lineup. Mike, come on now. Come on, man.
Man.
You're saying if you take Jared Allen, who's not played a single game in this series, and who's not going most of this playoffs,
I guess
I know ifs and buts and candies nuts to be Christmas every day. You take Jared Allen and you swap him and LeBron, and you put LeBron into this team. And they were let's just say they hypothetically they topped out at the 3 seed. They get past the Pacers, okay, or whatever, and they're playing the New York Knicks. They're playing the New York Knicks. You're telling me that team doesn't beat the Knicks in their current iteration? I mean, come on now. I
still have 2 dudes in that lineup that
Tibbs' record against LeBron in the playoffs. Come on, that's all I need to say. Get out of here. Right. They're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Do they beat Boston? I don't know. Probably not. But I mean, I feel a lot better about our chances if LeBron was on our team. I'll tell you that much. Even with his chemistry deficiencies and his, I mean, there's no way JB Bickerstaff would have left. JB Bickerstaff would have been the coach in this all the way to the playoffs this year. We would have had Rich Paul would have been the coach or something. I don't know, but I'm just saying.
Pete Dambrot, Drew Joyce.
Listen. So that's all I'm going to say. We need to end this pod, but I'm just saying. LeBron's on this team. We're an Eastern Conference Finals team. The end.
All right, whatever. I'm not sure that's the case, but we'll see. Hey,
who's beating us other than Boston, Mike? Who's beating us other than Boston if LeBron's on this roster?
Philly. Embiid, Maxey, Paul George.
Get out of here. Get out of here. It's not happening.
Milwaukee, Giannis, Dame. Come on, man.
No, I was talking. No, come on. That team. Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is. Do I have to say anything again? Doc Rivers is the coach. I don't need to say anything more than that. That team ain't doing nothing.
A whole training camp with Doc Rivers. Come on, man.
Come on. Yeah, Doc Rivers. He's probably golfing a lot now. Again,
I'm sure
he wanted the season. He wanted the season to end so he could go golfing again.
Is he going to show up on the Simmons pod soon again?
I don't know what. Maybe.
All right. We were planning to go like 30 minutes. We went an hour.
Yeah, 15, you talked a lot tonight, Mike.
I did talk a lot, but hey, whatever. All right. Thank you for checking out tonight's NBA episode of the Hoop Heads podcast, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks.